Hello, people of the internet. The old dude is back. Am I back? Not really, but kinda. It's been around a year since my last video, so why did I stop? Well, doing videos was becoming kind of a chore for me. It wasn't as fun anymore as it was in the beginning. I also felt like I was losing my original focus for the videos or the channel in general. And lastly, life got in the way a bit, personal reasons and all that stuff. So what have I been doing all this time? Did I stop drawing? Not really, I didn't stop, but I slowed down for a while. As I said, life got in the way for a little bit. But recently, I've been picking up speed again these last few weeks. So I thought we could start by looking at some of the work I have done during this time. For instance, here's a cute little bunny that was going to be featured in my next video if I hadn't stopped. I wanted to show it because it's one of those zero stress, let's just see what happens kind of drawings that turned out surprisingly good. Next, I had the super original, never done before idea of painting an apple. This is a quick one that I did in less than an hour, I believe. And then, because I'm a very original and creative person, I did another apple. I got inspired by watching a video from legendary Disney animator Blaise, and I used a workflow similar to his. And I had also just downloaded Marc Brunet's free brushes, so I was trying out those. Even though realism isn't the style I'm aiming for, I was very pleased with the result. So I compiled a little animation going through the layers and the different stages of the process for you. First step is the sketch, obviously. Then you add flat colors. Then comes local colors. Then a shadow pass with a multiply layer. A light pass with an add layer. And then you do the rest of the freaking apple. After that, I got artist block for a few months once again. Until a few weeks ago, where I started drawing anything, whatever it was, almost every day. Here are some highlights of that era. On the left, you can see a study of Tarzan from an illustration by Frank Frazetta. The dragon in the middle I sadly don't have the name of the author for. And on the right, an unfinished attempt at a T-Rex that I did without any specific reference. Then I did an assortment of anatomy and perspective studies with varying degrees of success. In the midst of all that, one day a stupid thought hit me. If a dwarf wanted to create an incendiary grenade, wouldn't he just strap a stick of dynamite to a mug of very strong beer? And thus, the beer-nade was born. An irresistible urge boiled up in me, and I just had to sketch this. After a whole afternoon of unsuccessful attempts, I suddenly came back to my senses and realized I had spent 2 or 3 hours creating a reference for myself in Blender. At this point, I said to myself, I guess this is a project now. So I did a few more unsuccessful try-hard attempts. And finally, after letting go of trying hard and just going for it, I landed on one that I liked. This is just basic brush on low opacity and a ton of happy accidents. but it had the personality I was going for. So I decided to also sketch a background for it and even try to add some color. It was at this point that I decided I maybe should make a video of the whole thing. So I gathered a bunch of references and started working on rendering every piece of it. What you're seeing here is 9 hours of work compressed into 9 minutes of video. So it's a 6000% compression, I guess. I separated, or segregated as the professionals say, every element of the picture into its own layer, so I could render them at my leisure. And I was also using a new brush I had created myself that I now don't like anymore, but it is what it is. The basic process is to go element by element, give it its local color with some color variations and such, and then with a multiply layer with a clipping mask you add the shadows, and then an add layer with another clipping mask you add the lights, and then go back and forth and add more layers and try different things until it looks more or less like you want it to. I should mention I gathered reference for everything. I had reference of barrels, of beer mugs, of how cork looks, of medieval bar, and as I said, everything. What I did not use were any sort of perspective guides or anything, so the perspective might be wonky if you analyze it. You can see here I've already added some shadows on the barrel and some lights, and then I'm working on the stone arch in the background, which didn't turn out as I wanted it to, but it will do, it's just in the background. So next time I'm going to try not to abuse multiply and add layers and instead choose the colors manually. But I was already juggling a few balls too many at the same time, so this time I chose the easy way out. Here I'm finally adding the beer mug itself with the cork and the leather belt and the stick of dynamite and everything. I even bothered to add the bit of the belt that goes behind the glass, but I don't think you can see it in the final image, so that was unnecessary effort. So, while the video is playing, I thought I would talk a little bit about the future of the channel, if there is a future for it. As I said, I started recording this video because the project I was working on compelled me to do it, or inspired me, or whatever word you want to use. So I think that's going to be my new quote-unquote schedule. I will do a video whenever I'm working on something that I think merits having a video done. This is a hobby for me, so I don't have any aspirations of becoming a full-time art YouTuber or anything like that. I don't care about the algorithm or uploading schedules or anything of that sort. I'm just going to make a video when I feel I have something to talk about. Mostly to document my thoughts, organize them, and free up space inside my brain. Once you've said something out loud or written it down, you usually are free to start thinking about the next thing. Almost halfway through the video. I said earlier that I don't really like the brush I used anymore, but I think I can still fix it. It just has a bit too much texture on it. One thing I learned that I already knew but didn't really, because if I knew it I wouldn't have done the mistake, is that I put too much effort in rendering the background and did a lot of passes on it, and when it was time to finally do the star of the image, I was kinda tired. So take it from someone who has done the mistake and put most of your effort on your focal point. Right here I'm doing the first attempt at rendering the cork, and I think I wasn't happy until the third attempt because the first two weren't too good. I ended up simplifying the rendering a lot towards the third one, and that's the one I kept. Later you'll see me fiddle with the leather strap a lot also, and by the time I start rendering the liquid and the glass from the beer mug, I kinda settle for the first thing that comes out and don't really try again or anything. So don't start working on the most important bit of the image on hour 8 out of 9 or something like that. Which isn't to say I'm not happy with the result. I think it's the best thing I have ever painted. And of course I also learned a lot during the process. Sometimes it's a hard balance, but I try to be critical of what I do wrong while still being proud of what I do right, I guess. So for my next video, I think I already have an idea of what it's going to be focused on. I'm going to try to explain both the process and the mindset that I use when I sketch the image that finally launched me into doing this whole illustration, and also incorporate some of the lessons I've learned while working on it. It's one of those things that works for me right now. Maybe in a couple years when I have more experience, I will say it was a big mistake, but I think it's going to be useful for other beginners like myself. Lo and behold, we're close to the finish line now. Only a couple minutes left. I really didn't think I was going to be able to come up with things to say for the whole while. As soon as I finish with the leather strap, you'll see me start working on the liquid itself and then the glass. And I can only say I need to do some studies on how glass actually works. The cool thing for me in all this is that now I know that I can bring an image to this level of finish. I have a process that works. So what I need to do now is get better at all the basics, like the form, perspective, proportions, etc., etc. And getting better at line work wouldn't hurt either. I think I start rendering the liquid right about now. Yes. In the end, I think I left the opacity of the beer layer too low, so it doesn't really look like liquid, but you tell me. The wood texture on the barrel though, I think that turned out pretty good. Now I'm about to start working on the glass from the beer mug, and you'll see the same thing. I do one attempt and I kinda settle with that and don't really try again or analyze what's wrong or anything. It ends up looking okay and conveys the idea, but it doesn't really look like glass, which is what I hoped for, obviously. I'm now working on the handle. First a multiply layer, then an add layer, then another multiply layer, then another add layer, then erasing some bits for transparency. And now for a finishing touch that took more effort than needed for the result it gave, but it was kinda cool. I did a quick design for a logo for the beer company. Quick in art speak means like an hour or so, but it only took that long because I was watching a show while working on it. The design was feeling a bit empty, so I decided to put some decoration in the middle. But once I integrate it into the main illustration, that part is covered up, so it was a bunch of wasted effort again. I hope I'm not sounding too negative about my own work. As I said, I learned a lot from the process and I had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm proud and I'm pleased. Don't confuse the monotone quality of my voice with me actually being bored or anything. I was just born with a boring voice and it's nothing I can do about it at this point. I even tried painting something that looked like a caustic effect, and then it's on to color correction and finishing touches, and this is the end of the video. Here's the end result for you to gawk at in awe, and whether you watch the whole thing or just jump to the end to see how it ended up, I thank you very much. I hope to see you again whenever I get inspired to do the next video. Bye for now. I also promise to make the next